Hey, what's up gamers? Since I made enough comments in my Git repository's development branch, I figured it's about time to make an update video on my NES game. In my last video I told that I ran out of free space in the ROM's main bank. This made it harder to add any new features to the core gameplay, since this 16 kilobyte bank is the only one that's always accessible in the ROM. That's why it was necessary to free it up somehow. At first it seemed impossible. I did not want to switch banks 20 times during a single frame. That would happen if, for instance, I would move the animal AI code to a separate bank. Luckily, after inspecting the code more carefully, it became apparent that there is a much easier way. I took the villager quest data along with the code that's responsible for the stuff that happens indoors, like sleeping or villager dialogues, and moved everything to the fourth bank. Then I moved the parts of the code that were related to the title screen and intro to the sixth bank, where intro tables are. This way I managed to free up more than 2 kilobytes. This seemed like more than reasonable amount to fit in the ending of this game. So now my main goal was to make this game beatable. For starters, I wanted to put in a pretty simplistic goal. My first idea went like this. The main character goes into the crash site and there he finds a perfectly working radio. Using the radio he calls for help and instantly a rescue helicopter shows up and takes our hero back to civilization. The end. For that I needed to create two locations, the crash site itself and some sort of a transitionary area that connects the world with the crash site. How about I add a cave? I somehow managed to forget how my map system worked and I was struggling to add these new rooms. Apparently the game doesn't want to load a map if I don't put some code manually. Or if I don't put few numbers to some obscure data list that I forgot was even there. What pissed me off even more was the thing that after I supposedly fixed the need to add manual code for each entry point, some kind of bug appeared that messed up everything. But I still somehow managed to put in a 2-screen wide cave and a single screen crash site. It was difficult to make the crash site look like an actual crash site, because I had a limited amount of tiles. So at first I created a very basic mockup screen, and then I exported this screen as a bitmap, and worked on it with the GIMP. This way I produced a lot of new tiles that almost filled the entire tile set. After I managed to put together something that looked good enough, I placed a new item there, a radio. This item doesn't do much, but when you try to use it, it activates the outro cutscene. To make this cutscene work, I was supposed to reuse the intro cutscene animation code and make it somewhat universal. But you know me, I just copy and pasted certain parts of the intro code. Since it's not in the main bank, it was good enough. At that moment I made a single scene that said the end in blocky letters. That should do for the start. Well, I guess it was finally possible to beat the game. But it was way too easy and, to be honest, way too boring. You just have to rush through the cave and grab the radio. I figured why not to add some hostile NPCs to the cave. So I added a bunch of werewolves there. This should also explain in terms of world building where these beasts are hiding during the day. I also made that it will be always night inside the cave, so it should no longer be affected by the day-night palette changes. Then I had a whim to change the title screen. Actually I was itching to change this screen after making the intro. Even though the old title screen was kinda cool and I got used to it, it revealed way too much way too early. I don't want to show to the player that we have monsters in the game just yet. Also the main character was looking silly there, not as serious as in the intro. The new title picture is more stylistic and abstract. But what's this? At last it's not just the survival game for the NES. Although this name is not final, most likely I'm not going to leave it. I mean, cold and starving, like, what the heck. It gives the vibes that this game is about some undead monster. Or perhaps I'm gonna be like this during this winter. But at least it's something. To make up for the basicness of this picture, I decided to add some snow animation. I don't think it would have been possible to animate the snowflakes by flipping every tile in this picture. Of course I haven't tried that, but I assumed that it would have been too much for the PPU. So I created a couple of tiles where the snowflakes are drawn with different colors. So by changing the values of those colors using the palette and adding appropriate delays between each change, I can create an impression that the snowflakes are moving. I guess I could create a better animation if I could use more than 4 colors per tile. But the final result is not that bad, is it? In future I'm planning to add even more animations to this screen. It was about time to flesh out the outro cutscene a bit more. The problem I faced there was that I had to use the same 2 tile sets I used for the intro cutscene. So there was not much place for new graphics, especially in the background tile set. I had to reuse stuff that was already there. I had to create additional tiles for the main character to simply display him without headphones. I also added a couple of letters for the writings. Each time I modified the tile set I needed to check on the old intro screens, because every change to the tile set might mess them up. If so, I needed to fix them. Probably the largest new object in the sprite tile set was the chopper that will come to the rescue. Once again I forgot about the NES limitations while drawing it, and the chopper's meta sprite had way too many tiles and it was too long to be properly displayed. I had to remove 15 tiles from it. At that moment, in my opinion, the chopper looked way too cool compared to the plane. So I just had to redraw the plane as well. After I tweaked the timings and the meta sprite movement, the outro cutscene was finally done. It was getting obvious that just running to the cave and rushing through it, even with the monsters, is not the best way to play the game. You don't even need to do anything that's related to survival, like collecting food, crafting items, or interacting with villagers. So I had to insert a very unoriginal gameplay mechanic that's basically used in every tile-based RPG or old NES game. Basically, I closed up the exit to the crash site with 2 tiles that supposedly can be destroyed with a very special item that you can receive from the villagers. At first I had some thoughts maybe it should be a bomb, but later I decided that this tool will be a hammer. So I had to implement destructible tiles. That wasn't very easy, because the environment is loaded from the ROM and it is basically unchangeable. I would need to store destructible tiles in the RAM, and I would need to update certain parts of the map where they are every time you scroll the map or close the menu. In the end, the destructible tiles ended up being limited to the first screen of a location. Maybe I'll improve them later and make them more adaptable to scrolling. I also feel like I need to use this hammer more. Perhaps I need to create a weaker version of it, so the player could go and hit some regular tiles like rocks or trees and extract some materials. I was already pretty sure that I'm not making an Animal Crossing clone here. So these talking animals like the bear are going against the tone I'm trying to establish with the intro and the title screen. Sure, it still could be a world like in Dragon Ball, where talking animals exist.
Stick to the script, furry.
But I felt it was kinda wrong, so I turned all the villagers into weird looking humans. The bear now is this barbarian dude Bjorn, and the hedgehog turned to be his sister. So you will have to interact with these weirdos to finally receive the hammer and reach the crash site. I expanded the villager quests from 2 to 4 per villager. Not all quests now give an item reward. Sometimes the information can also be rewarding. I must say it was pretty hard to cram the villager phrases into 3 dialogue lines. At first you think you can fit a nice sounding sentence there, but when you start putting the letters, you quickly realize that only half of the sentence fits. So you have to dumb the sentence down. The screen tool can't open assembly maps that are less than 30 rows. So I created a temporary map to edit these dialogues. I just copy first 6 rows to my code after I'm done editing. So yeah, now you can complete the game. Heck, you can even speedrun it if you want. Now my goal is to use up all the free space in the ROM to the fullest and expand the world. And of course, to make the game less janky. I have 2 major gameplay changes in mind, but I will reveal them in my next video, so if you're interested what those changes will be, then please subscribe to the channel. If you want to try beating game for yourself, you can find the link to the ROM in the description. Let me know in the comments how quickly you managed to get to the radio and how annoying the experience was. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.